Are you ready for a story that will change everything you think you know? Welcome to the Story Diaries. Let me know in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from today? And have you ever had a moment where someone completely underestimated your abilities? The scorching Nevada sun beat down mercilessly on Blackwater Air Station as twin rotor blades carved through the desert heat. The thunderous echo of Apache helicopters filled the morning air, their mechanical heartbeat drowning out everything except the occasional bark of orders across the flight line. Near Hangar 7, a figure moved silently between the shadows of parked aircraft. Zara Bennett wiped hydraulic fluid from her hands with a stained rag, her auburn hair pulled back beneath a faded maintenance cap. To every pilot, mechanic, and officer on base, she was just another civilian contractor, someone who fixed things, someone invisible. The grease-stained coveralls she wore told the same story as her calloused hands, years of honest work, nothing more. Her voice was rarely heard above a whisper, her presence barely acknowledged. When she spoke at all, it was usually to warn someone about a mechanical issue they'd missed. Most ignored her. That morning started like every other, until the alarm screamed across the base. Code Red, search and rescue operation, all available pilots to briefing room Alpha. Zara paused, her wrench halfway to a bolt, as boots thundered past the hangar. Through the gap in the massive doors, she watched Colonel Marcus Webb stride across the tarmac, his face carved from stone. Behind him, a cluster of young pilots jogged to keep pace, their flight suits crisp, their confidence untested. "Listen up!" Webb's voice boomed through the briefing room speakers, audible even from the hangar. "Reconnaissance Team Delta went dark 40 minutes ago. Last known position, Crimson Canyon, 15 clicks northeast. Weather's deteriorating fast. We've got maybe 3 hours of viable flight time before those mountains become a death trap." Zara's hands stilled completely. Crimson Canyon. She knew that airspace better than the back of her scarred hands. "Sir," came the voice of Lieutenant Carter Pierce, the squadron's golden boy. "What's our opposition situation?" "Unknown. Could be equipment failure, could be hostiles. Either way, those soldiers are counting on us. I need 2 birds in the air in 20 minutes. Zara set down her tools and walked to the hangar's edge. 2 Apache helicopters sat on the pad, engines cold, crews scrambling. She could see the problem from here. The lead bird's rotor head was leaking hydraulic fluid, a thin red stream that would turn catastrophic under stress. She stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. "That bird's not flight ready." Lieutenant Pierce spun around, irritation flashing across his face. "Excuse me?" "Hydraulic leak, main rotor assembly. Push that bird hard and you'll lose control in 15 minutes. Pierce looked her up and down, taking in the coveralls, the grease stains, the civilian contractor badge hanging from her neck. "And you know this how?" Zara didn't flinch. "Because I've seen pilots die from less." The other pilots exchanged glances. Some smirked. Colonel Webb appeared in the hangar doorway, drawn by the tension. "What's the holdup?" Webb demanded. Pierce gestured dismissively at Zara. "Base maintenance thinks she knows better than our pre-flight checklist." Webb's eyes narrowed as he looked at the helicopter, then at Zara. "You see something my pilots missed?" "Hydraulic pressure's dropping. Port side actuator. It'll hold for taxi and takeoff, but the moment you pull any serious G-forces..." She trailed off, letting them fill in the blanks. "She's not even military," Pierce muttered. "Probably never been inside a cockpit." Zara's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. For just a moment, something flickered behind her green eyes, something dangerous. "You're right," she said quietly. "I'm not military. Not anymore." The words hung in the air like a live grenade. Colonel Webb stepped closer, his experienced eyes studying her face. "What did you just say?" Zara reached up slowly and pulled off her cap. Her auburn hair fell free, revealing a small tattoo at the base of her neck. It was subtle, almost hidden, but unmistakable to anyone who'd served in special operations. A stylized hawk with wings spread over crossed lightning bolts. The mark of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. The Night Stalkers. Webb's face went pale. "Sweet Jesus, what unit?" "Ghost Company, Afghanistan. 2018 முதல் 2021. The hangar fell silent except for the distant hum of engines. Every person present knew that name. Ghost Company didn't exist in official records, but their legend lived in whispered stories throughout special ops communities. Lieutenant Pierce's smugness evaporated. That's impossible. Ghost Company was disbanded. All personnel reassigned or dead, Zara finished, all except one. Webb's radio crackled with urgent chatter. The rescue window was closing. Men were dying while they debated credentials. "Can you fly that bird?" Webb asked, nodding toward the only operational Apache. Zara looked at the aircraft, her expression unreadable. "I can fly anything with rotors." "Then get in the goddamn cockpit." Pierce stepped forward, protests forming on his lips, but Webb silenced him with a look that could melt steel. "Sir, regulations clearly state." "Regulations," Webb snarled. "Don't save lives. She does." Zara walked toward the Apache with a fluid grace that spoke of countless hours in identical cockpits. Her hands moved over the controls with muscle memory, each switch, each button as familiar as breathing. The engine spooled up with a rising whine that sent vibrations through the concrete beneath their feet. She slipped on a headset, and for the first time that day, her voice carried authority. "Shadowhawk requesting immediate takeoff clearance. Emergency rescue operation." The radio crackled back instantly. "Shadowhawk, you are cleared for immediate departure. Godspeed." Shadowhawk. Even Webb recognized that call sign from classified after-action reports. The pilot who'd extracted Navy SEALs from a compound crawling with Taliban fighters, the one who'd flown a damaged bird through a sandstorm to evacuate wounded Marines, the ghost who'd vanished after one mission too many. The Apache lifted off with surgical precision, its nose dipping slightly as Zara pushed forward on the cyclic. She climbed rapidly, banking toward the mountain range that loomed like broken teeth against the sky. "Shadowhawk to base," her voice came through clear and calm. "En route to Crimson Canyon, ETA 12 minutes. Behind her, Lieutenant Pierce stood frozen, watching the distant aircraft disappear into the heat shimmer. Colonel Webb placed a hand on the young pilot's shoulder. "Son," Webb said quietly, "you just witnessed something that'll probably never happen again. That woman didn't just save a helicopter. She saved those boys in the canyon, and she saved your career from a very short ending." 15 minutes later, Shadowhawk's voice crackled over the radio. "Base, this is Shadowhawk. I have visual on Delta Team. 3 wounded, 2 critical. Taking heavy fire from elevated positions. Beginning extraction now." The radio went silent for what felt like hours, but was probably less than 5 minutes. Then, "Base, Shadowhawk. Package secured. All souls on board. RTB now. Medical team to the pad immediately." When the Apache touched down 20 minutes later, it looked like it had flown through hell. Bullet holes dotted the fuselage. One of the stub wings hung at an odd angle. Smoke drifted from the engine compartment, but every member of Delta Team walked away alive. Zara climbed down from the cockpit as medical teams rushed the wounded soldiers toward waiting ambulances. Her face was streaked with sweat and dust, her hands steady despite what she'd just endured. Colonel Webb approached her slowly, respect written in every line of his weathered face. "How?" he asked simply. Zara looked back at the damaged Apache, then at the rescued soldiers being loaded into ambulances. "Same way I always did. One rotor turn at a time." She started walking toward the hangar, but Webb's voice stopped her. "Zara," she turned, "we could use someone like you. Permanently." For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then she looked at Lieutenant Pierce, who stood nearby, his earlier arrogance replaced by something approaching awe. "You've got good pilots," she said finally. "They just need to remember that the aircraft doesn't make the pilot makes the aircraft." She tossed Pierce her helmet. "Next time someone tells you something's wrong with your bird, listen, even if they're just the mechanic." As she walked away, Pierce called after her. "Ma'am? What do I tell them happened here today?" Zara paused at the hangar entrance, silhouetted against the bright desert sun. "Tell them the truth. Sometimes the best pilots are the ones nobody sees coming." And if they ask who Shadowhawk really is? She smiled for the first time that day, and it transformed her entire face. Tell them she never left. She was just waiting for the right moment to remind everyone why legends never truly die. 3 months later, Blackwater Air Station had a new chief flight instructor. She didn't wear her old rank insignia, and she still preferred working on the aircraft as much as flying them. But when new pilots arrived at the base, they heard the stories. About the mechanic who became a legend, about the woman who proved that true skill doesn't need permission to save lives. And sometimes, if they were lucky, they caught a glimpse of a small tattoo on the back of their instructor's neck. A hawk with lightning bolts. A reminder that heroes don't always announce themselves with fanfare. They just show up when you need them most. The radio chatter that night told the real story. This is Ghost Leader to any station. Shadowhawk. If you're listening, the boys you pulled out today want you to know something. Delta 6 is going to make a full recovery. Doc says another 10 minutes in that canyon and we'd have lost him. Shadowhawk copies, Ghost Leader. Just doing what needed doing. Negative, Shadowhawk. You did what only you could do. Thank you for reminding us why some legends deserve to stay alive. Copy that, Ghost Leader. Shadowhawk out. The next morning, Colonel Webb found a handwritten note on his desk. Sir, the hydraulic issue is fixed. All birds are flight ready. If you need me, I'll be in hangar 7. Some things are worth fixing, some things are worth saving, and some things are worth fighting for, even when nobody knows you're fighting. Z. Attached to the note was a photograph. A group of soldiers standing beside an Apache helicopter in Afghanistan. In the pilot's seat, barely visible through the cockpit glass, was a young woman with auburn hair and determined eyes. On the back of the photo, someone had written, Ghost Company, the ones who bring everyone home. Below that, in fresher ink, Shadowhawk, still bringing everyone home. That afternoon, as the sun set over Blackwater Air Station, maintenance crews could hear the sound of tools working in Hangar 7. If they looked closely, they might catch a glimpse of their mysterious mechanic, bent over an engine, completely absorbed in her work. But now they knew the truth. She wasn't just fixing helicopters, she was keeping legends alive. And in a world where heroes seemed increasingly rare, that might be the most important job of all. If this story reminded you that heroes often hide in plain sight, share it with someone who needs a reminder today. At the Story Chronicles, we believe that bravery doesn't always manifest with enthusiasm. Sometimes it's just a show of guts in overalls and a wrench in hand. If our stories resonate with you, click the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join our community of people who believe legends never truly die, just waiting for the right moment to soar again. We're so glad you're with us. See you in the next story.